Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today is going to be somewhat of an interesting reel, and it all gets started because, well, somebody had sent me a note on the Penn 350, which is the level line fishing reel with the unique spiral bar system for level wind, and they said, can you show me how to set that bar? Well, I had this one. I was ready to go and just take this off and show you the process, but then I was searching around and found that I have a beautiful reel that's got two issues with it. The first issue is that it's missing the bar. The second one is it's missing a couple of screws, and I think missing those screws probably affects this spool. So what I thought I would do is I'll show you a little bit of everything. I'll answer all those questions in terms of how does this thing work, and more importantly, how do you set it, and what's the inside of this reel that makes it kind of unique look like. So what we're really doing is taking two reels that probably wouldn't do well in either place, and we're making one good reel out of it. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is take off the pieces and parts of both reels. So I want to keep them separate. Even though I know where the end game is, I'm not sure where it goes in terms of starting. So I have two parts trays, and I'm going to use the first one for the reel on the right here. This is going to be the reel that I would like to upgrade and finish and make complete and have operating nicely. And then the other one is going to be this one, which, well, it's all kind of broken out. It's a terrible reel in terms of cosmetics. It's what I would generally refer to as a parts reel. That's kind of what the condition of it would be. All right, I'm going to kind of test something first. I know I'm missing the two screws on the bottom of this, what I'll call the good reel. And I want to put those screws back where they're missing here and see if I got a bad spool or not, because it's kind of been sounding like I do, but it may just be that the reel seat is bouncing against the spool, making it sound like it might be out of shape. So before I go too far, let's do that. All right, let's give that a test. Oh, that's running fine. So it's not doesn't appear to be a matter with that spool, but of course I have a spare spool on that other one if it's the case. Now this one seems to be running fine. And let's continue then. So we're going to take this off. We also notice we're missing this little cap here, the bearing cap. So before I go too much further, let's take that one off as well. That'll come into play when we go back and rebuild the other side of the reel here. But let's get all one reel complete with the exception of that torsion bar, and then we'll work from there. So if it's a little bit disjointed, this is probably how my mind is working, and we're just going to try and move everything along in a measured pace, show you what's kind of going on right and wrong with the reel, and where that takes us. I like to clean the parts as I take them off. This is going to be the reel we will use. I'm not going to spend any time cleaning parts from the other reel. And that torsion bar, or level line bar, or whatever the proper name is for it, that's the hardest thing to find on one of these reels. Most of the time you'll find a reel, well, like this one, that's missing it if you're out there. This reel's been serviced over time. This has been installed backwards. You can see the stamp number on this one, and well, that belongs on the back side of the reel. There's two sides to this star adjuster. One of them's got rounded corners to it. That's the side without the stamping on it, and that belongs facing you. It's not just a cosmetic thing. It's the roundedness of it versus the flat side of it makes it less difficult. There's a issue here with that little bearing. Not quite sure what's going on there. I'm going to try and find that wrench. I don't think it's going to be this one. I think it's going to be a 9. Oh, we can probably get it tight with this. And that's probably why this was so tight on this side, or loose on this side. because that bearing wasn't set. Well, while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this, maybe you're working on one. Maybe the whole subject of this video is somebody who had a question on it, asking me how do we set that other side. And that seems to make all the difference in the world there. Okay. Well, I turned that upside down. The collar for the gear sleeve came off. And now let's take the rest of this side plate off. The questions can be on anything, and it doesn't have to be on this reel. It doesn't even have to be on an ocean reel or a saltwater reel or anything like that. It just might be a general question. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about Penn reels, how they originated, where they came from, what role they play with Penn reels is of pure fishing today. Anything, just generally leave those questions in the comments section. I will try to answer those for you. Ironically, or not, this is the first reel, the type of reel, not the actual reel, but the type of reel that my dad first bought me. We used to fish quite a bit in the North Atlantic, or Mid-Atlantic, if you will, seaboard. And most of it was summertime fishing. We didn't get out much in the wintertime. But when we did, one of the things my dad liked to do was keep fishing. And this one provided a level wind feature so that I didn't snag them up too much. My brother and I were kind of notorious for dropping things all over the place, getting birds' nests and the like, spooling it all up on one side. And well, this was a design that kind of stopped, at least the rewind. If you hooked into a fish, you didn't have to worry too much about setting the line. That torsion bar did it all for you. This is the same internal gearing as a Beachmaster. All right, let's give you a shot. There was the question here was, what's the inside look like? How do you set it? This is the answer to the question, right? It's got a whole different thing. You've got a level wind guide driven by a main gear, long arm. That's going to go in and out. I'll turn it so you can see how that's going to work. You can see how that beak kind of moves in and out like this. And then you have a spring load that's kind of pulling it back. I'll show you a greater set on that when we go to do that. And then on the back side here, this is interesting, the anti-reverse dog. It's not in this reel, it's sitting on the side. So it makes me wonder a couple of different questions here about what's really going on with the reel. All right, put that off to the side. We said that the spool looks to be in good condition. So does the other one. So I don't know if I'm going to swap them out. I'd like to keep the reel together if possible. And there's another side to this, and that is a dead end side, but because the reel is what it is, we're going to clean this reel. And then we're going to be able to go over to the other side, take that other part off that's needed. Okay. So when I take the second set of screws and cross posts off like I'm doing here, I like to take the side plate screw, put that into the post. That way I know what side of that post goes into the piece. So these reels are very much like a lot of the Bakelite side plated reels of the time. If you're going to break a side plate, it's going to be this one, because the handle generally gets in the way of breaking the gear sided plate. Not that they don't break, but they're less prone to breaking than the ones on the bearing side, not the handle side. All right. I like to keep the sides straight on these. The post itself, the position of the post itself doesn't matter too much, but what does matter is the sides, just because over time pieces tend to warp and the like, and that just lets you set it back up to the way that the piece has done over time. Here you go, Penn Leveline 350, in case you haven't heard of that before. We did clean the other piece up. Let's clean this piece up. So a lot of times, most of the time, you're looking over my shoulder in my shop as I fix other people's reels. You're looking at what's come into the shop for service. Well, today you're looking at a project that was kind of in my bins, but I got the question from the viewer that said, how do you set that Leveline setup? Can you show me the inside of it? So I had a moment here, and that's why we're doing this in response to readers' questions. So I do welcome questions. Sometimes I'll get a question. I got one this morning about a quantum reel. Can I show how the anti-reverse is set up? And I don't have the reel in the shop. It was one of those projects where I had done the work for a customer, and he's got it out there fishing now. And the fellow that asked the question was watching the video and didn't see that particular aspect of it, and asked me, could I redo it, or could I do a video on it? Well, I don't have the reel, and so what I do is I keep a little notebook, and as reels come in, I check off against that notebook, and if there's a question or a request for a video that I can solve with that reel, that's what I will do. All right, so we just cleaned this side up. I'm going to take this off just again to show you what it's about, but this is only a mount on this side. There is no advanced mechanism or anything in here. If I can get a little place to grab this ring. There we go. So all you have is a cup here that's controlled by this bearing. There is no advanced mechanism of that. So on this side, if you have one of these reels and you're trying to make sure that you can get that spiral bar to advance, you don't need to do anything on this side. Put that back together. And we'll do a quick cleaning on these posts. So I don't generally stop fishing these videos to just hasten things up. I generally will run the video right through it. That's because I'm more about the reel repair than I am about the cinematography or whatever we want to call this that goes through that. But if you want to go get your favorite drink or take a snack or a timeout or something, I'll be a minute or two here doing this. And I generally try to talk and bring up some points during that. Like right now, we're just cleaning up those sides. And again, those crossbars here are kind of designated for which side by the one that has the screw in it. There's 4 of these crossbars. So we'll take care of those right now. Then we'll go on to reassemble. Show you how to service the rest of this reel. So if you want to take a moment, go get your beverage of choice, go right ahead, and we'll be right back. All right, I've cleaned all of these up. This one looks like it's got a little bit of boat rash on it. So a bit more. I'm using a 4-0 steel wool, and I'm using a automotive cleaning agent. It's Turtle Wax chrome polish. I'm using that as the metal polish. Not quite sure how much Turtle Wax chrome polish is sold for chrome plating in automobiles these days, but at one time, I guess, when you had those big bumpers and everything, it was the product to have. Resetting these first. I like to reset these before I put the reel seat on, and that's because the reel seat can be stabilized when these bars are in place. If you didn't notice when you took your screws out, if you put them all in the case together, if you're working on one of these reels, these 2 screws that go into the reel seat or stand or whatever you want to call it, they're smaller, they're shorter. All right, so when you put those in first, then this is easier to align, hold, and get started. All right, so those are back together. I should probably take the time to take the line off the spool, but for this, I'm just going to leave it as it is. Okay, so Got a nice clean frame now. We have a spool that seems to be clean on both sides. There's a little bit of debris on here. That's probably because that bearing side wire, for whatever reason, came loose. So I'm just going to use that same steel wool and polish to get that off. And a little bit of grease onto this side. I did notice that the click ratchet in here is very good. It's got a nice sharp point on it. Let's just go put that back in. So I think there might be a little bit of old grease around that bearing cover there. We'll just put that back in and set it to the side. Then we're going to come over here. I'm going to do the same thing. You're going to need to remove the plate in order to get this bar out. And just because it has less pieces, and this will probably just go into a parts tray. I'll just take this 5 screws out here, 6 screws out here. Pull that plate, and then I'll come back to that at another time. These are good reels. They share a lot of parts. As I mentioned, they share the parts with the Beachmaster 155, so it is a low ratio gear, and it just has the complicated or the secondary set of pieces. This is what we want. The rest of it, as I mentioned, I have 2 parts trays. I'll just take that, take this whole set, put that into the parts tray for now, and if I happen to find another reel that needs the parts for the 350, then I have that. Alright, that goes off to the side. This is the bar, and the bar has the same issue on this one as the plating on the other, so we'll take a moment here to do the same thing. Now this one is not in as good a condition as the metals on the other, but it's not terrible either, which is why I selected this particular reel to become the parts reel. It's everything else about it is pretty oxidized and the like. Okay, so we've got the bar now. This brings back memories fishing with my dad. It's amazing what fishing reels do. They do bring back an awful lot of memories. I know a lot of the comments that I get from time to time in the channel say just that. Okay, so this is just going to plant itself over here, and you need a little bit of grease onto that stud to hold that one in place. So let's go service the other side of the reel, show you how that ratchet works here, and take it from there. This again was a 155 base. That's going to come out first. I like to hold my hand on that piece here. I don't want to lose the screw as we're doing other things. And there's 4 screws that you want to take out on this side. 2 of these screws are fully threaded. 2 of these screws are partially threaded. Partially threaded ones are going to go through the springs that are the yoke springs. So they're going to be located on what is the top of the reel, this side. And once you do that, we can push out. And again, well, this is interesting now. Not sure how that happened, but there was an extra dog wound up in this reel. Go figure. Because here's the dog and the spring for this reel. So somebody's clearly been playing around with this thing. Don't know why I got the 2 sets, but I did. Here's your 4 screws. Again, 2 of them are fully threaded, 2 of them are partial. Get a look at that. I'm wondering if somebody purchased this. Yeah, this is the right one. So this is just an oddball one that came along for the ride. Okay. I'm still holding on to this piece here. Want to press down on the yoke. Pull up and out on that. Pull up and out on this. Remove the 2 springs. If you need to remove this, it's okay. This is an eccentric. remove the screw. That screw is holding this back gear in place. And you can see how it's offset, which is going to make the rest of this move. So let's do that, just because the question was, how do I reset it? So let's see if we can get that screw out of here. And I'm going to just take these pieces of parts, put them over in the parts tray so I don't lose them. Let's take this down then. It's a big headed screw. Now, don't lose the spring. That spring is almost impossible to get as a replacement. So pull that piece out. Take pictures, because you want to make sure you have the right picture for what will be the rebuild. Okay, we have it all out and apart. I'm going to take a moment and use some penetrating oil to clean this up. And I'm going to use a cotton swab to get rid of the old greases and dirt. Now inside this reel is very clean, but that's how you would clean it. Okay, a little bit of grease behind that wheel. While you have the grease brush, go ahead and put some grease into the back bearing where the spool is going to rest. Check the teeth on your gear, make sure that they're all clean. Again, this reel's very clean inside. Then we can place that back in. A little bit of grease onto where that eccentric is going to ride. We know we have the spring up next. Just want to polish the back end of this. Wipe that down, get the old residual off of there. This big spring, well, it's hard to find, so don't lose it. You want to get that onto the hook of your eccentric cam. I guess we're going to do it this way. We're going to put that into the channel like that. We can come underneath, hook it, and work your cam over so that it sits like that. And we can bring our screw back in. And that'll hold that whole piece in place. The bridge is very similar to most of the Penn setups. We're going to find out what we have in here. We have the old washers in here, so we'll take a minute to change those old washers out. They're rather flimsy, and I suspect indeed, yeah, they're all, you can see they're just kind of stuck to there. I'm going to shut the camera off for a second. We'll go back and get the washers, and we'll be right back. As I noted, they use the same washers as the Penn 155, and these are the HT100s. They're the more modern version of the Penn drag washers. I'm going to use that penetrating oil again to get in the seams of the main gear and pull through on that to get rid of the old dirt and debris, and you can see it coming out here. So when this gets done, well, I'm going to have a fully functional reel similar to the one that my dad bought me as a child, and that's always fun. If we can, we want to get the main gear sleeve off. It's held in by a pin, and usually you can push that pin out and through. Like this, you can see how the pin comes through. And then you want to remove the gear sleeve so that you can clean underneath. Don't assume anything. Don't assume that it's clean, nobody's used it, blah, blah, blah. This is where gear gets trapped and grease gets trapped. All right, we're going to cotton swab through the sleeve itself, pull out a little bit of the dirt. And then we'll come back and put some grease onto the shaft. Reinstall the gear sleeve. Push the pin down, and when you push the pin down, make sure you clear that ridge. We've cleaned the teeth on the main gear. Well, if you're enjoying this, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button That notification button will let you know when I'm posting, which is frequently, and you'll be able to see if that's one that you want to watch. I have all kinds of videos out there because it's what comes into my shop for service. So some days you're going to see an ocean reel, some days you'll see a freshwater reel, some days you'll see a spinning reel, maybe another day it'll be a low profile bait caster, and so on. There's 3 drive washers, 3 metals, and a cap. The metals, there's 2 of these. They're called keyed washers. They look like a rectangular center. They go high and low after you've installed the drag washer. That's the second one. These are HC100 washers. You have the option to put grease on them or not. I'm leaving them dry for now. Penn typically leaves them dry. And well, cap washer goes on next. And that last little spacer washer. And then these were the old leather washers. You can see they're brittle, they're worn thin. And I guess in an emergency you could have reinstalled those, but since you have these out already, it just makes sense to do it the right way. All right, I'm going to get ready to reinstall this part then. Again, the inside of this reel very dry. Just check to make sure that the shoulders of your yoke are clean. If they're not, again, you can buff them out. You can use a kitchen scrubby. I prefer 4/0 steel wool most of the time. I'm going to do the same thing here with the pinion gear that we did with the main gear. Just going to flood that a little bit with some penetrating oil. And then I'm going to pull back and out to get the old greases. And these gears, you need to check them, make sure that they're all even, that they're not pitted or broken in any way. If they are, you need to replace them. You can still get the gearing for this. Some parts are more difficult to get. You can't get that torsion bar anymore. I don't think you can get the spring for the advanced ratchet here. So just be careful as you go about doing your work. But if you do see something that's broken, don't go ahead and try and put it back together again. If it broke the reel, it's not going to help to put it back in. All right, we've greased the shoulders on the yoke, greased the teeth on the pinion gear. I'm going to center those over the springs and press down. And grab our jack. And then that's how it will look when you've got it set properly. Push down on your assembly. Take your bridge and insert that. And make sure that you mesh that main gear in with that little drive that we just fixed over here on the side. It should be nice and tight and inside. Put the bottom one in where you see that gap in the side plate, and then we can bring in the dog and then the other spring. This is the spring that belongs in this cavity right here. And to do that, you want to load the one side into the kind of the beak portion, press in, and then kind of release it back. And that's how your spring sets on this side. Once you have that in, rotate it around, make sure that your pinion gear comes through. And then tighten down on that screw so that you can hold that dog in place. And I'm finding it very curious that there was an extra dog in this one. And it was under the side plate, it was over here, so that kind of really, whoever did something in here did something funny. But I'm the benefactor, I get another dog, and those aren't necessarily easy to find either. All right, and that's not a dog for this reel. I go opposite corners. That's the partially threaded one up there that went through the screw. Come down to the lower corner here. Sometimes if you get over tightened, just back your screws off a little bit so that you can align the other screws with the holes. Again, the partially threaded one goes through the spring. This is a long way to answer a question about how do you set the torsion bar, but well, everything else might as well get done while you're doing that, right? All right, this is done now, except for our sleeve. And the exterior parts, but I'm going to put the star adjuster back on here because in order to make all of this work, I want to hold down that drag, and that drag is going to enable me to turn the wheel, which is going to turn that turn this piece right here, this whole assembly, and you can see it's turning it in and out. So here's the kind of sort of the trick with this. On setting it, bring it so that it's all the way out of the way. You can see right there, it's out of the way. Right there, it's out of the way. If you try to set this with the beak out here, you'll have more of a difficult time when you go to align with this set of gears over here. One more piece then, we're going to put the side plate on now. Just a little bit of residual. This rubber glove is good for keeping dirt out of places. The problem with it is that it transfers that dirt that it gathers on there. All right, let's bring this here. And you can see now that click ratchet is out of the way. So when you go to install the reel, I'm going to grease onto the stud on the spool, bring this in, roll it over, and if you're having any difficulty at all, just turn the bar now. That should enable you to set it all in. Just like that. I heard the snap. It's exactly what I wanted to hear. And now we can put a couple of those screws back in. Let's start with the one right next to the bar. That way I'm going to hold the bar in. I'm going to come opposite the other way. Now remember, there's 4 screws that are long and 2 of them are shorter. So the long ones go in the cross posts. And I'm going to take one of those short ones that goes below. And I might as well seat the other one while I'm at it. So something obviously was amiss with the reel. It was missing that. I think maybe somebody had actually probably used it for parts because the side plate screw here was missing, the 2 on the seat. You had an extra dog in there, and we didn't have the bar. So kind of weird stuff. But that's what happens. Maybe when this came in, it was a parts reel, and I put aside, and then you saw what happened there. We found a nice reel, but we found a reel that just cosmetically wasn't in very good condition. And we were able to take 2, make one very nice reel out of it. Okay, there's one more screw here. And then we'll put the rest of it on and see how we did. Okay, got that set. Need the handle. Need the handle screw. So what have we done? We've taken this reel completely apart. We've shown you how that ratchet system works to advance the bar. We've actually shown you how to change the drag washers because they were worn. We explained a little bit about the mechanics behind it. We cleaned the whole reel up. Found out that, well, whoever had the reel the last time, there's some interesting little things that were going on there. A couple of missing screws, an extra dog laying inside the reel. So probably was a parts reel on somebody's bench somewhere along the time. But this is from a 60. It's stamped that way, I guess, right? Yeah. Actually, this is from a 209. All right, there you go. All right, let's see how we did then. So we have a nicely cleaned up reel. We'll get rid of this line, but we weren't going to do that as part of this. This spool is still spinning tight. This is your adjuster on this side. If you loosen it up, it spins nice and free and easy. Look at that. You wouldn't know that this reel is an early 1960s reel, that's for sure. The idea with this torsion bar is that as the line moves with that click, 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 it's always going to find the flat spot on the bar, and that's why you're going to wind up with an incredibly nice, even spooled one like this, but it doesn't use the line guide feature that you find on so many types of reels. And that's actually to an advantage because you don't need the pawl, you don't need to worry about that line guide coming undone or bent or breaking, and it's kind of an ingenious solution here. All right, we're in free spool mode. Let's go back over to drive mode. Look at that. You would never know that this reel is from the 1960s. Look at how that torsion bar moves. And you can see how it will move the line back and forth, always going for that low spot as it comes over the top. Fantastic. Well, I hope that's answered the question. I hope that's shown you how to take apart and service the reel, and a little bit about the mechanics behind that torsion bar Leveline system. This is the Penn Leveline 350. That's how you service the reel. I hope you've enjoyed it. I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, EMT, and everybody involved in public safety and keeping us out of harm's way. And I want to thank you, the viewer, if you're still with us. I really do appreciate you. This has kind of been a long lesson here, but it's been a fun one for me. As I mentioned, it was one of the first reels that I fished with, and it definitely was the first reel my dad ever purchased for me. And that goes back to the early 1960s. So it's been fun, and I appreciate you staying with me and watching the video. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great time on the water, fast friends fishing, and just generally a great day overall. Take care.